Good evening, everybody. The League of Women Voters of the Columbia Public Library welcome you to tonight's hybrid candidate forum. I'll explain more what that means in a moment. My name is David Lyle. It's my privilege to be the moderator for the League of Women Voters tonight. We want to thank KFRU and KOPN. They are broadcasting this forum live on the radio tonight. The League has prepared a voter guide for the general election Boone County contested races and ballot issues information. And if you are able to check their website, it's lwvcbc.org. That stands for League of Women Voters, Columbia, Boone County. Tonight, we're going to focus on the general election contested races for Boone County offices and for circuit judge. Those races are for Boone County commissioners in District 1 and 2. We would also call them sometimes Northern and Southern, Boone County treasurer and circuit clerk. The judicial races for circuit judge, Circuit 13, Division 3. For the League of Women Voters candidate forums, both candidates in a two-person race have to be present by Rule 501C. We are disappointed that 3 Republican candidates for office had informed the League that they will not be participating tonight. They are Jesus Ossetti running for Circuit Judge, Cherie Tolson-Reich running for Boone County Commissioner in District 2, and Amanda Old running for Circuit Clerk. The Democratic candidates running for these offices are here, and they're going to be part of our formal forum. At the conclusion, they will not be part of the formal forum, but what we will do is at the conclusion of the formal forum, we're going to have just a conversation with each of those, and that's how we will end tonight. We will now begin with the formal candidate forum. We have 2 candidates for Boone County Commissioner for District 1. The Republican is Sam Turner, and the Democrat is Justin Aldred. The Boone County Commission is an elected 3-member governing body with a District 1, which would be the Southern Commissioner, a District 2, the Northern Commissioner, and a presiding commissioner. The commission establishes county policy, approves and adopts the annual budget for all county operations. It approves actual expenditures for each department, supervises the operations of public works, planning and zoning, building codes, human resources, purchasing, information technology, and facilities, and grounds maintenance. It ensures the countywide compliance with numerous statutory requirements and acts as a liaison with county boards, commissions, and other government entities. Each candidate, as we start tonight, will have time for a 2-minute opening statement, kind of an introduction, and then we will have some questions that the League of Women Voter members want to ask, and then we will have questions for the in-person audience and Zoom questions written for the chat section. If you're watching or listening to this on Zoom, for our in-person audience, there are note cards on your chairs and you can write your questions on that. Catch the attention of one of the League members, just raise it up or hand it up front, and they will give it to me, and we'll be able to ask those questions also. After questions, each candidate will have time for a 1-minute closing statement. Candidates will give their opening statement in the ballot order, and then we'll reverse that for the closing statement. So Sam Turner is closest to my left. Welcome. Thank you for being here. We'd like to hear your opening comments.
Well, thank you for having me. Like David said, my name is Sam Turner, running for Southern Boone County Commissioner. I'm a small business owner, work with farmers on a daily basis. So obviously right now is a very busy time during harvest. Been having pretty good yield so far, so we're excited. I started my business 4 years ago in Ashland, and since then we've expanded to 5 counties. We also do just sell corn and soybean seed. We also do crop protection as well. So we're traveling county roads on a daily basis. My wife, Samantha, and I've been married almost 8 years now, and we have 3 kids. Sterling, who's a kindergartner in Southern Boone, he's 5. Then I have a tornado of a daughter who's 3, and her name's Sutton. And then I also have a 4-week-old. So, not a whole lot of sleep going on, but ultimately why I want to be a Boone County Commissioner is because of my 3 kids. I want them to grow up in a safe community, one that's got a strong economy, and one that they can look at their dad and know that they're doing something, that he's doing something to try to make the world a better place. So my name is Sam Turner. I'm running for Southern Boone County Commissioner.
All right, thank you, sir. Justin Aldred, your opening comments, please.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to the Daniel Boone Regional Library for hosting this tonight. Thank you for having me. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Justin Aldred. I have the honor of being the Boone County Southern District Commissioner. I first came to Boone County as Lieutenant and Battalion Signal Officer with the 175th Military Police Battalion of the Missouri Army National Guard. Since then, I've fallen in love with this community. I chose to make it my home. The Army blessed me with the opportunity to finish up my degree at Mizzou, our flagship state university campus, and I was also blessed to learn about local government through my time at the Missouri State Auditor's Office. I see the work I do now in local government as an extension of the public service that I first committed to when I raised my right hand and enlisted in the Army. My thanks to the League of Women Voters for putting this event together. Our community has significant growth and need. I believe the scarcity of affordable housing is a significant problem impacting communities across the state and nation, and it's impacting ours too. It's a simple matter of fact that Boone County is projected to need 37,000 additional housing units by 2050. Our joint city-county housing study will provide us paths towards addressing this issue across Boone County. The success of that housing study is dependent upon community engagement. The simplest way to say that, it's dependent on good communication with all the people in this room and more. It also requires a good amount of trust. Trust is the number one issue local governments face. Every communication my office receives, from economic development to elder care, from efficiency in government to education, on every issue, no matter what the issue is being discussed, the real issue being debated is trust in government. When you drive on local roads, you trust Boone County Road and Bridge crews for maintenance. When you dial 911, you trust that there will be a competent Boone County Joint Communications employee there to take that call. So as we look at the amount of growth our community has undergone, we know we can serve the needs of our community better and bridge gaps in service when the leaders among local government, nonprofits, employers, workers, businesses all work together. So once again, thank you to the League for hosting this tonight, and I'm happy to be here.
We're going to start with questions, and we'll start in just a moment with questions from the League first. But again, a reminder, those of you who are present in this room at the library, if you want to ask a question, write it down on the note card provided. And those of you who are listening on Zoom, use the chat feature. Each of the candidates will have a minute to answer the questions. If we need to do any follow-up, we'll give time for that also. I want to start, first of all, and we'll let Sam Turner answer first here. What are you hearing as you campaign are the major concerns of those who you have addressed and who you've had conversations with?
Well, I think since we started door knocking, the number one concern right now is public safety. We have a lot of folks that are scared that the community is not safe anymore. I would be willing to bet that most of the people in this room feel that Columbia is not as safe as it was just 10 years ago. When we're knocking doors, that's what we're hearing. When we have the threats going on in Southern Boone schools, it's nerve-wracking when you drop your son off in kindergarten after they've been closed the last 2 days for active threats. To me, I think that's something that's really important to me is public safety. The other thing is infrastructure, trying to fix our roads, trying to pave more roads, trying to fix our bridges. So those are the two main concerns that I'm hearing as I'm knocking doors.
All right, we're asked the same question to Justin Aldred. When you're out campaigning, what are you hearing people say that they're concerned with?
Yeah, I think that it's the needs of the constituents really, and that's what people come to me with, and that's three things. That's housing, that's childcare, and that's food security. I talked to a woman today who had to choose essentially between hiring a babysitter and going to work. That is a rough choice that too many of our community face. Food security, just basic needs, putting food on the table is something that I think plagues our community in more ways than we realize, and it affects a lot more people than we realize. It affects a lot more people than we're willing to say in some aspects. And again, housing, whether that's the bottom of housing, or if that's looking at the very top, whether that's looking at our available, affordable supply and demand, whether that's looking at rent, whether that's someone trying to figure out where they're going to go when their lease is up. Those are the issues that I'm hearing at the door.
We'll start this question from the League of Women Voters for Justin Aldred as we alternate those who get to answer first. How do you plan to handle future growth in Boone County, especially around the Ashland area?
I think that's a robust relationship with the city of Ashland. I think that's what we really do need as a commission. We cannot ignore, what their needs are, what they're looking at. I think that goes hand in hand with the master plan that we're currently developing and we're updating for the first time in 25 years. So that's, looking at with what we want to preserve in our rural community that surrounds Ashland, what we want to expand in our rural community to make sure that there is housing for people as Ashland continues to grow. Ashland is one of the fastest growing communities. I think it grew by 148% since the last census. And that's something where we need to make sure that we're meeting the needs with sewer expansion, investment, making sure we're meeting needs with road, and just generally making sure that we're building policy that supports infrastructure growth.
Sam Turner, the same question to you. How do you plan to handle future growth in Boone County, especially around the Ashland area?
Well, I'm really fortunate to live in Ashland, so I know firsthand, the growth that's going on in Ashland. It comes down to relationships. I have the support of the Ashland Mayor, Dory Slinker. I also have great relationships with the water department and the front office crew. there. When I built my house in Ashland in 2018, I was maybe one of 20 houses in the entire subdivision. There's probably over 50 now in just 6 years. So I understand the growth that's going on in Ashland. I also understand as a business owner, the importance of being strategic when you're investing. So whether that's in sewer, whether that's in fiber optic internet, we know we're getting more and more online nowadays. So being able to have an open relationship with the city of Ashland, with their staff, making sure that we're moving this county, this community together as a whole.
On the same subject, so I'm going to let Justin Aldred answer this again, because it's kind of a follow-up to that. What is the importance of maintaining a rural feel in Boone County? And by that, I mean, are people from Ashland or the surrounding area, are they satisfied with the growth? Are they worried about the growth? Are there anti-growth people? If you want to grow, come to Columbia, could some say.
I think the answer to that is all the above. I think there are people from all walks of life, and I think that we have diverse needs from our community. I think our solutions need to be just as diverse. So as we look at things, we have to look at preservation areas, things like farmland preservation, rural preservation, conservation buffers. That's all in Southern Boone. That's not just Ashland, that's Columbia too. Then we also have to look at transition areas, what we're doing for transportation, what we're doing with the 6370 corridor as well. And then, of course, growth, as Sam said, there's quite a few houses going up in Ashland right now. So how do we make sure that our sewer district is meeting that? How do we make sure that our electric grid is meeting that? Those are all things to consider.
Sam Turner, the question to you, and I'll repeat that, the importance of maintaining a rural feel, and what are you hearing in diverse opinions about whether it is beneficial or not?
Yeah, it's been very diverse. Owning an ag business, I work with farmers that's been there for multiple generations. They would tell you to move to Columbia. They want to continue their rural lifestyle. But when you think about Ashland, you think why I'm raising my family in Southern Boone County. It's because you're 15 miles, you're in Jefferson City, 15 miles, you're in Columbia. It is a really safe community as well. People want to live there. So, using the master plan for farmland preservation, rural preservation, things like that, it goes hand in hand in making sure that the community feels like the county commission is doing the things that they need to do to make sure that they're, open to growth, but at the same time reserving farmland for our farmers.
Sam Turner, you're first on this one. How are the federal infrastructure funds currently being used? And would you push for any changes in the use of these funds?
Are you referring to like ARPA funding or?
Let me look at the league. ARPA funding? Okay.
Well, I could talk about ARPA funding quite a bit. We talk about how our fire districts who didn't get any ARPA funding, it's really disappointing. We were just talking about Ashland's growth. Ashland got ARPA funding the second round, the first round they got denied. We talked about how we want to grow our economy. We want to make sure the people in Ashland feel like they're getting the needs they need. Well, give them the ARPA funding request that they needed to update their water treatment plant. So I think when we look at ARPA funding and how it was spent, you see a very diverse position from where I stand. I think that money needs to be put towards public safety and infrastructure. And frankly, the county commission didn't put a whole lot of money towards those things.
Justin Aldred, same question to you. How are the federal infrastructure funds, or we've defined that now as ARPA, currently being used, and would you push for any changes in the use of these funds?
No, that was a very robust process. I don't think I would push for any changes in these funds. We had over $136 million in need and requests from our communities from all different walks of life, and we had about $35 million to give out. So that went to everything from sewer infrastructure, workforce childcare, affordable housing, public health, and we can also name that went to Boone County Regional Sewer District, that went to City of Ashland for stormwater improvement, that went to City of Sturgeon, Columbia Chamber of Commerce, the Andy Boone Regional Library, where we're currently sitting, was also a use. So, I think that there was significant things that went into that. We had a very robust process in making sure that the public was heard. We had multiple public hearings all across the county. I think it was the right thing to do then. It's the right thing to do now.
I'll let both of you expand on that. I know that 60 seconds went pretty quickly for both of you. Sam Turner, you want to follow up with any more on it?
Well, I just would like to know from the county commission why the fire districts were turned down ARPA funding. We know that, Southern Boone Fire District hasn't raised their taxes since the 1980s because we know in Boone County we pay pretty high taxes. So I guess I'll ask you, why did Boone County fire districts get turned down ARPA funding?
Justin Aldred, it's your turn to follow up however you would prefer on that particular topic.
Yeah, I think once again, there is significant need, and there was also a need and federal restrictions in these funds on what they could be spent on. So things, making sure that there is transformative change was the federal guidance that we got. We know full well that there is going to be an audit of county government when this is all said and done. And we know that at the end of the day, if funds were misspent, that they would not be coming after those that received the funds, but instead Boone County and the taxpayer.
We're going to move on to another topic, and this is for Justin Aldred first. What aspect of climate change are you willing to address during your term as a Boone County Commissioner?
I think all aspects of climate change should be addressed. I gotta kind of expand on that question because I think as we look at that, that is once again hand in hand with our master plan, hand in hand with what we can do, making sure that it's, simple changes like things that we can take from the Columbia's climate action and adaptation plan as well. But that in real world changes looks at things like solar regulation and wind regulation. And I think that's part of being a planned and zoned county. We can do that here because we are in fact planned and zoned. Other counties don't have the regulations to stop that necessarily or change that in any way. Anyone can make any solar farm do whatever they like in any other county. Here, we actually can build policy that supports growth while not being a burden to anyone.
Sam Turner, same question to you. What aspect of climate change are you willing to address during your term?
Well, I think, I'm a ag business owner, right? I don't know if there's anyone in the world that loves the earth more than farmers right now. I mean, it's literally their, how they make a living. I think when we're addressing climate change, whether that's solar, renewable energy, things like that, anytime those are brought to my desk, we'll take a look at them. We want to make sure they make sense for Boone County. We want to make sure it makes sense for our citizens. And I'm open to any and all changes for renewable energy. It just has to make sense for a county.
I'm going to ask on that, how you answered that. I'll go with Justin Aldred first. What are your thoughts about windmill and solar and using that in Boone County? Other counties have gone beyond what we, especially on the windmill.
Right. I know from experience and talking to other county commissioners across the state that other county commissioners want what we have currently, because right now what we have is good policy on things like wind turbines, on things like solar. And we're still updating that, and that's a living document that can be changed as technology changes, that can be changed as need in the community changes. But ultimately being planned and zoned is what it's all about, because that is what takes us from, having an industrial site in a farm area or a residential area.
Sam Turner, same question to you, said about windmills and solar panels, if it makes sense.
Yeah, so we talked about this a couple weeks ago at the Realtor Forum, right? I think it comes down to, master plans, lay the groundwork for how the county needs to be planned and zoned. And, but like Justin said, it's going to be a living document that's going to be adjusted. I think when it comes to wind and solar and things like that, it falls onto the property owner and what they think is best for their property, while also fitting into the master plan.
This is a point. I've gone through the questions that the league have provided. If anyone has a question, it can use the chat on the Zoom, or if you have a question, we have one right there. So we'll have that brought up. While that's happening, you both referred to, and Sam Turner, you start on this one, referred to the master plan. I'm curious as to your hopes, your thoughts about where that master plan is at this point in time.
Well, I think for the Boone County master plan, I think the current commission's planning on having it voted on and approved by the end of the year. Is that correct, Justin? You'd like to have that done. As far as how the master plan looks, what I think about the master plan, I just really hope that whether it's me on the county commission or Justin next year, that this isn't the plan that sits on the shelf the next 20 years, that we actually can implement this plan and we use it to help Boone County. So that's my hope for it.
And Justin Aldred, same question about the master plan to you.
Yeah, I think it goes back to a question you had asked earlier. I think that when I look at the master plan, that is going to be what the county commission uses on land use decisions for the next 25 years. So once again, that is how we can balance our needs, our growth, and our preservation. And that's incredibly important to me. I think that's something, also as we're going forward with this, making sure that we have public hearings, making sure that commission's not wagging the dog. We have planning and zoning doing open public hearings across the county. Right now, there's going to be 3 of them. That's something that's very important to me. It's not just important to me, it's about making sure that the community's voice is heard in this process.
Justin Aldred, you're first on this. Two questions from members of the audience. They're both related, so these are going to serve as one question now. You mentioned or conversation about public safety has come up early on in this conversation. And so the questions deal with why are there such a reluctance to address the gun laws and why not addressing gun reform? I'm not sure that's within the purview of you, but you understand what the question is, and I don't know whether a commissioner can do anything about that or not, but your reaction.
No, I don't know that the commission has the scope to change state of Missouri law. We are not a home rule county, so that would be the change that would need to take effect in order for anything like that to ever happen. You know, looking at it, I think that we should be proactive in looking at anything we can do for our sheriff's office, our law enforcement office, to work with the state of Missouri, to work with federal partners as well, you know, whether that be ATF, FBI, making sure that we can do that prevention. I think that ounce prevention is worth a pound of cure on that. But as far as changing gun law, that is not something the commission is able to do at this time.
Sam Turner, you get a comment on this though.
Yeah, the county commissioners are not gonna be changing state gun laws, so I don't really have much of a comment on that.
Yeah, and you know, we had another question about crime statistics and things like that. I mean, I'm going to assume both of you want a strong sheriff's department, and we're almost out of time, so I'm not going to trace that anymore unless you indicate that you want to make a comment on that, because I'm more concerned wrapping this up with, and I think we start with you, Sam, on this one. Sam Turner, on the relationship between the rural parts of the county and the city of Columbia. How would you help to deal with both aspects? They're quite different, but they share a lot.
Well, I think right now, the current county commission, you know, that not a whole lot of them have a whole lot of rural background, which is something I could bring to the county commission. Growing up on a family farm, my wife growing up on a family farm. You know, I understand rural Boone County, I understand rural Missouri. And then when it comes to the city of Columbia, you got to have relationships with city council. I have a great relationship with a couple of the city council members, and working on our relationship with the others. At the end of the day, it comes down to, you know, building relationships and working together to try to make sure that we have a Boone County that everyone, not just rural, but also the city of Columbia, can live and grow and prosper.
Justin Aldred, same question about the relationship of city, county, town, and rural area.
I also come from a rural area, and I lived in Ashland for a little bit as well. You know, I think once again, looking at the city of Columbia with this, it's back to where they want to go in the future as well, and where we as a county can be, because things don't stop just at our political borders. So whether the city of Columbia is going to grow up in density or whether it is going to expand outward is a key question when we're looking at things like sewer expansion and expansion in general. Especially as we look at all areas of our county, even out to the Midway area and whatnot. You know, on that, you know, whether it's, I think it is back to relationships again. So I've had hundreds of meetings, hundreds of phone calls from everything from our airport to, you know, our sewers, our roads, whatever it may be. You know, that's really how you can get out to those areas, is making sure that you're showing up where the people are.
We have reached a point where we need to hear closing statements, and each of you have an opportunity to make a 60-second closing remark, and we start in reverse order is how we begin. So Justin Aldred, you're first.
The next iteration of the Boone County Commission will determine the basis for land use and policy for the next 25 years. It is incumbent upon the next commission to build stable, smart, and reliable policy to support both the needs of our community and infrastructure growth for the future. In my time on the commission, I've worked towards building a regional law enforcement training center with our sheriff, increasing access to affordable childcare for first responders and dedicated 911 dispatchers, investments in food security for the food bank for central and northeast Missouri that serves not just our community, but a 32 county stronghold across the state of Missouri. That's the work that I've started in my first term and will continue in my second term as Boone County Commissioner. I'm humbled to have the support and endorsement of my own local 955 workers, Sierra Club, Both Vets, and Moms Demand Action. I would humbly ask for your vote in November, and I would specifically ask that when you vote in November, that you vote all the way up and down the ballot. Once again, thank you to the league for hosting this tonight.
And Sam Turner, we'd like to hear your closing comment.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for coming tonight. Thank you for giving us an opportunity. I know sometimes when you get this far down on the ballot, some of us don't get to talk as much as some of the folks at the top of the ticket. So I appreciate you guys taking the time inviting us. At the end of the day, you know, I'm a small business owner. I started my business from scratch 4 years ago, and I've really tried to pour, you know, my time, my effort into this community. I will do that as a county commissioner as well. At the end of the day, I'm just a dad who wants to see their kids grow up in a community that's safe, that has a robust economy, somewhere they can feel like one day they could take over the family business as well. And like I said, thank you again for your time. My name is Sam Turner, running for Boone County Commissioner in the Southern District, and I would humbly ask for your vote in November. Thank you.
Justin Aldrin and Sam Turner, let's give a round of applause. I think we need to take a break. Okay, we'll do that in a second. The questions about gun control and also about crime, I think are very appropriate questions. I don't have a problem with those questions. I like them. Those of you who want to ask those questions online or in person here, let's do that on Thursday. You'll have an opportunity to talk to representatives who are running for state house positions. The state makes those laws. If you want those laws changed, you elect state representatives or senators or governor or anybody else on that list to back your positions. County commissioners, they basically are in charge of making sure we have a good sheriff's department and not making gun laws. We'll take a quick break and we'll come back in 2 minutes to the library for this League of Women Voters Forum. For this League of Women Voters Candidate Forum, and we have 2 more candidates that I'll introduce in just a moment. I want to tell those of you who are in the audience here in the Fringe Room at the library to make sure you pick up one of these handy cards, because you may vote on November 5th, or you may vote in October. There are several options of a way that you can vote in October, either absentee vote, which is underway now, or no excuse early voting, which starts on October 22nd. So this is a handy little reference, and those of you who are not here, I think you probably get some of that information on the League of Women Voters website also. We're going to move to talk about the county treasurer. It's an elected official responsible for receiving, dispersing, and investing all funds for the county and ensuring that monies are correctly segregated into separate funds as required by law. The treasurer manages the county's $100 million investment portfolio and is focused on ensuring county money is invested safely and securely. That also investments meet the liquidity necessary for the county's cash flow needs, and that investments achieve the best possible yield. The treasurer issues all general obligation bonds and revenue bonds for the county. The treasurer is responsible for safeguarding the county's unclaimed property and returning the property to citizens and entities. We welcome both candidates. Each one is going to have a 2-minute opening statement for their introduction of themselves to you, and then questions from the League of Women Voters. And then, as we've done in the previous segment, we'll take questions from the audience written on the note cards or the chat section of the Zoom. Each candidate will have a minute to answer the questions when we get to those, and then we'll have the 1-minute wrap up. In reverse order is how we're going to start. Dustin Stanton is here, and he is going to be top on the ballot in this particular race. So you get to make your 2-minute opening statement first. Welcome.
All right, welcome. Thank you, David, and thank you to the league. As has already been said, a lot of times the down ballot races don't get a lot of time to talk. So I really do appreciate the ability to come to this forum this evening and speak with you all. My name is Dustin Stanton. I have been in Boone County my entire life. My family has actually lived in Boone County since 1845 on a family farm up west of Centralia. So roughly 180 years or so. So we have strong roots here, really care about the community, care about the future growth of the community, and care about just providing the heritage be passed down to future generations as well. I began an egg business at the age of 6 called Stanton Brothers Eggs. Started selling at Columbia Farmers Market in 2007 at the age of 14. By the time I was 16, the USDA recognized it as the nation's largest independent free-range egg operation. On top of that, it was really instilled in me at a very young age to get involved and to give back to a community, especially one that's given me so much. With that being said, I am the former president of the Boone County Farm Bureau. I am a former co-chairman on the Columbia Chamber of Commerce. I am the current president of the Boone County Extension Council and the current president, which I love this one, of the Columbia Farmers Market. The Farmers Market has a really special place in my heart. With that being said, also I preach at the Hallsville Church of Christ. My faith is very important to me. It is essential to who I am as a person and some of the beliefs I have. And with that being said, I think that's really important that we have officials that are honest, that are ethical, that are transparent. And that's something that I strive to bring to the Boone County Treasurer's office. As many of you know, I was the Boone County Treasurer in 2022. I was appointed by Governor Parson at that time, narrowly lost the race. And hey, I guess I'm back at it again.
Deja vu.
Deja vu all over again.
Generator, welcome. We're glad that you're here. And now your 2-minute opening statement.
So, as you said, I'm Jenna Radel. I am currently serving as Boone County Treasurer. I've spent the last 25 years of my life in public service, always serving in roles where I get the opportunity to serve and protect my community. I started out as a victim advocate, working with victims of domestic violence and sexual assault in hospital and courtroom settings where I showed up to help those more vulnerable people navigate a complex system. Then I became a police officer because, again, I wanted the opportunity to use a position that had inherent power to protect vulnerable people. After I went to law school and got my MBA from the University of Missouri, I started serving as an assistant attorney general for the state of Missouri. And in that role, I got to defend the citizens of Missouri against corruption, mismanagement, and crimes that were committed against them. After my time at the AG's office, I got to work in local government for the first time and found what turned out to be my true love of public service at the local level. I, again, got to help the county government comply with the laws and put the citizens of Boone County first. And then 2 years ago, I was elected to serve as the treasurer. And immediately in that role, once I came into the office, I started looking for opportunities to protect the investment portfolio, the public funds of the citizens of Boone County, and started developing better systems to help raise our accountability and our transparency.
All right, thank you for the opening statements. I'll come back to Dustin Stanton for the first question. How do you generate interest or excitement in this particular race?
Well, you have to be a nerd to begin with. You'll be there. I think that a part of understanding the role of the treasurer's office is understanding the complexities of what's really going on. We start talking about timed investments and start talking about bonds and TIFs and NIBs. A lot of folks don't even know what those acronyms are. But I think at the end of the day, one of the issues that people really need to understand is the importance of the treasurer's office. I will preach this up and down. It is an administrative role, meaning that it really doesn't matter if there's a Republican or a Democrat in that seat. What matters is that you have the most qualified person to be in that role. As far as interest goes, people just need to understand how important this community is, and how even in a role like that, that's behind the scenes, the person sitting in that seat still needs to have a deep passion for what's going on throughout this community.
Generator, same question to you. How do you generate interest and excitement in this particular race?
And so knocking on a lot of doors, most people don't really know what the treasurer's office does. And so that's where we start the conversation. My responsibility includes managing an investment portfolio of about $200 million. And before I came into office, there was no transparency in how investments in that portfolio were purchased, what the rate of return was on those, who we purchased them from, what the duration of those investments were going to be. And that stuns that there's that much money in local government, and there's so very little transparency. And so then we talk about the things that I've done since coming into office to raise the profile of what's happening in the office and make us more accountable and transparent.
We may come back to that topic in just a moment. Jenna Radel, this will be your question. What systems are in place to assure good cash flow for county operations? Would you change those or implement the current system?
So cash flow for county government really, the treasurer's office manages the cash that's available for all offices. When I came in, there were no cash flow models in county government. That means that for the most part, as funds were available to be invested, there was no connection between the duration of those investments and when we were actually going to need that cash in the bank to pay our bills. And so one of the first things I got started on was creating a cash model. So I looked through 10 years of receipts of when we spend money, how much money do we spend each month, and used a big nerdy spreadsheet to just create a big model to be able to see what the cash flow through the county ordinarily looks like, so that we could better plan when we needed our investments to be timed so that cash was available for all of the county seats. And the treasurer doesn't just hold money for the county, also the library, Boone County Fire Protection District, Boone County Family Resources. We hold funds for a lot of other agencies who all have, we average about $11 million going out of county accounts every month. And so we need to closely watch what our deposit levels are and how much cash we're getting next.
Let me repeat the questions because there are two parts to it for Dustin Stanton. What systems are in place to assure good cash flow for county operations? Would you make changes or continue to implement the current system?
Well, I do think the cash flow models are actually a good idea. I actually have those as well. I had actually a very solid open line of communication with all the department heads. So for example, the way that I had it set was that if there was a $250,000 bill or more coming through in a single day, that the department heads would give me a heads up on that so that the cash would be liquid to be able to pay those bills when they came in. I do think it's more than $11 million that goes in and out of the account every month. Yeah, because our bank account has $11 million and it's FDIC insured. If you go above 11 million, it's not FDIC insured. So one thing that's really important is that we keep that. I had about 10.5 million, 8 to 10.5 million, depending on the time of the year. And then also on top of that, we have sinking funds set to the side. So there was a reserve fund. I won't name the bank necessarily, just be fair to them. But we had a sinking fund of about $12 million in that as a reserve that could be used for liquidity to get us through whenever there was tough times, you may say, or just month by month.
I'm tempted to give a follow-up because I have to be careful how to do this. There are certain rules to a League of Women Voters forum. But would you, I can give you both a response if anybody wants to make a response. You want to respond to that, Jenna Radel, first?
Sure. If there were cash models, they did not survive the transition. There were none available to me when I came into office. That's my cash models go out 4 to 5 years. And so it is, it's incredibly important to the job. And it took several months to get those developed for the office.
Dustin Stanton, a follow-up on this particular topic from you, please.
Do you remember that white folder that had all the passwords with Simpro and all the investments and all the ticker symbols?
I'm aware of the Simpro folder that I found hidden in the archives of the office after you left.
It was, you know, if we're gonna play like this, we can play like this if we want to.
We'll see how it goes from here on out. Let's go with Dustin Stanton. The next question. What guidelines would you use in investing county funds?
Well, it is very important that we invest our funds in safe, liquid, investments. Bonds and CDs, I do believe, are the best things to put our investments in. So when I was county treasurer, our rate of return was between 3.9 to 4.2%. As Jen has already said, there's over $200 million in the reserves today. If I'm not mistaken, at a current Mule Skinner's meeting, it was said that there was $213 million. And when I looked on your website, it said that there was $4 million in invested income. Calculators are not biased, Republican or Democrat, it really doesn't matter. When you take $4 million over $213 million, you will find that that is a 1.8% return. To me, that's very alarming. That is one of the main reasons that I am running, to bring concern to that and to bring alarm to that to the people of this community, because that's a big, big deal, guys. I mean, right now, I can go down to any bank and get 4% or 5% rate of return. The difference in that is about $5 million is what we should be getting in addition to the investment income.
Generator, same question to you. What guidelines would you use in investing county funds?
So we have an investment policy. When I came into office, it hadn't been updated in more than a decade. That policy has been updated since then. It requires diversity and some other things. Those policies were not followed before I came into office. Our investment portfolio was significantly out of compliance with policy when I came in, and I've been working to correct that. The rate of return on the portfolio when I came in was around 1%. It's higher today than it was when I came into office. The investments that I've purchased since I came into office are readily available to anyone who wants to look at them on the Boone County Treasurer's webpage. You can see that the average rate of return that I've gotten on those investments is over 5%. It is just that the vast majority of the investment portfolio is locked up in the bonds that were purchased years ago that have a low rate of return.
We'll go to the next question, and Generator, you'll be first on this. Besides managing the county treasury and making recommendations about monies, what duties does the Boone County Treasurer's Office perform?
So additional duties include we manage the unclaimed property. So anytime the county has issued a check to someone or the courts have issued a check to someone and it hasn't been cashed, that goes into an unclaimed property fund. One of the things that I am very excited about that we've been working on is it's a little bit sad to say, but our checks were not eligible for remote deposit before I came into office. And so now we've changed those checks so that they are now eligible. You can remote deposit them. That means that we have less checks that go uncashed. So the community gets its money back more quickly and with less hassle. And then we also issue bonds and any kind of debt for the county.
Dustin Stanton, same question. Besides managing the county treasury and making recommendations about monies, what duties does the Boone County Treasurer's Office perform?
I really break it down into three sections here. So you've got paying the bills, and that's very common, right? Money comes in, you pay the bills, keep it solid and liquid. So paying the bills, which is very common. Unclaimed property. So when the county writes you a check, if you do jury duty, for example, you make it a $5 or $12 check. If you don't deposit that, that actually goes back to the county in our unclaimed property fund. And there's a job of the treasurer to hold on to that and to the best of their ability to get that back to you. And then thirdly, investments. I would like to add a different branch to that as well. Something that I would really love to do as the Boone County Treasurer is to actually go to Jet City and to advocate for more funds. Something that really, really worries me, and I'm sure worries you guys too, is that in Boone County, we are losing Republican representation. And I know that's a nasty word to throw out there, but at the end of the day, Missouri is a Republican-based state, meaning that we have a lot of money coming to our university and our hospitals and for broadband expansion. And we're not gonna have anyone to go down there and to really represent us. And so that's something that I would do. That's not a part of the job. That's something that I really want to do to help this county to get more funds for us.
Dustin Stanton, first to answer this question, would you continue to have an investment review committee to provide transparency and oversight for the treasurer's office?
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I think that's wonderful, actually. So I would commend Jenna. Thank you for bringing that together. One thing that I would say, I believe the committee is made up of CJ Dykehouse, and it is also made up of Sheriff Dwayne Carey. Am I correct in that?
And Alyssa Marva. Yes.
Okay, I don't know who Alyssa is, but I'm sure she's a wonderful lady, seriously. But no, I think that's a good idea. I would say though, I don't know how much I want to take the sheriff's time to be worried about ticker symbols. I am very happy every time we make a purchase to send him an email on a side to let him know that money's been put into a new investment. But he has got a lot of big fish to fry. He has a lot of issues going on. So I don't want to take up too much of his time, but I'm happy to give him everything that we buy.
And the same question then to Jenna Rado. Would you continue to have investment review committee to provide transparency and oversight to the treasurer's office?
Absolutely. Review committee didn't exist before I came into office. So I created it early on in my tenure. Before I came into office, as I mentioned before, the specifics of or the details about our investments were not available to anyone outside of the treasurer's office. And so I created the investment review committee to bring transparency and to shine a light onto what is happening. I chose people for that investment review committee who had a professional or statutory responsibility to report any crimes, mismanagement, or theft of funds that anyone in my office would be doing to Boone County government. And so that's why the sheriff and the county's attorney are two people on the committee. The other person is the chief deputy in my office. She's on the committee because she has the most knowledge about the reporting systems. She can access every account that we have. And so she is there because she knows a lot, and also so that she can facilitate the other folks on the review committee getting any information that they would want about what's happening.
Well, I'll do a follow-up and we'll go to Dustin Stanton first. How would you fine tune it, if at all? You mentioned maybe the sheriff wouldn't be on it if you were.
Oh, no, he could be on, that's fine. I just don't want to take up too much of his time. Meaning that if he wants to have an email every time we purchase an investment, that's totally fine with me. He can see all of that if he wants to. I think so. CJ's on there, Dwayne's on there, and you said Alyssa's on there. I could see someone from an unbiased source, maybe from the university, out of the business school, that would have another different perspective, an academic world's perspective on investments, be on there as well, just to give advice. I don't have a name off the top of my mind right now, but I'd be all good with adding someone like that committee as well. I think that'd be a good thing.
Jenna Rado, same question, following up with you. Your thoughts about if there's any fine tuning. You said a while ago you were the one that came up with the investment review committee. Now that it's been in existence for a while, what do you see as a fine tuning need, if any?
Yeah, so I've been working on recruiting both a CPA and someone who is coming from an investment background. The difficulty with both of those is finding someone who, my ideal candidate, if anyone's listening and interested, is somebody who's retired from one of those industries, because my biggest concern is not bringing somebody onto the board who has an interest in guiding our investments to someone else, right? I'm trying to prevent corruption. And so limiting the opportunities for that is utmost important to me. So someone who's coming from having industry experience, but who isn't working with a bank, who is retired from that part of their life, I would very much be interested in anyone who is interested in serving with us.
Like someone from the university?
I've talked with folks from the university and folks from the city already, where we have been having lots of communication to try to help develop this system. But yeah, absolutely, somebody from the university could be a great add-on to the team.
Generator, first on this one. It was kind of brought up a few moments ago, but I'm just curious as to each of you responding to, how does you run on the ballot listed as a political party candidate. How does political party affiliation affect how you do the job?
Yeah, so it is, I've been in positions throughout my whole career that were nonpartisan. They were intentionally nonpartisan positions. This office also, right, it is a spreadsheet nerd job. And it doesn't really play a lot into policy development or politics other than sometimes people bring their political connections to the job. So I am the first treasurer to come into office through an election since 1977. Everyone else who's come into the office since that time has come in through a political appointment. And so we have had 10 different people leaving that office over the last 15 years, which has caused a lot of disruption and is why some of our systems are broken. But yeah, it is at this point a job that you get elected into. And so that is the only way that politics play into it.
Dustin Stanton, same question to you. How does political party affiliation affect how you would do or did do the job?
Yeah, no, I think Jenna's answer was pretty much spot on there. I mean, political party doesn't matter for this office. I mean, if you're a Republican or a Democrat, heck, if you're Green Party or Libertarian, whatever, it really doesn't matter for this office. It is administrative. It is paying the bills. It is investing the money. It is, giving the people back their unclaimed property in the community. The one thing that Jenna did say that I would actually like to talk about again is that the connection piece does actually matter, guys. So if you do have a Republican in there, and I know that's a nasty word, right? But if you have a Republican in there, he can actually go down to Jeff City and bring more money to this county. Okay, I think that's a really important factor that we're not talking about. Advocacy outside of the county is also very important.
We are going to now ask for the closing statements of both of these candidates, and we'll start in the reverse order as how we open. So, Jenna Radel, we'd like to hear your closing comments, please.
So thank you very much for spending the time to listen to us talk about spreadsheets and the treasurer's office. I strongly believe that honest government has nothing to fear from transparency. And in fact, transparency is the antidote to corruption. I have spent my time in the treasurer's office trying to make our practices more transparent, to abide by the policies that we put into place, and to keep those policies updated and to include anti-corruption and ethics requirements. This is the first time in the 160-year history of the county that this level of transparency has been active in the treasurer's office. And I would appreciate your support in November to continue to do this work. It is fledgling, it is in its early stages, and it needs help to continue on.
Dustin Stanton, your closing comment, please.
Yeah, I do appreciate the opportunity to come tonight. Thank you, Lily. Really do appreciate it and the honor to speak with you guys this evening. It really does mean a lot. Because once again, this is the community that I grew up in. So this place is my home. Not going anywhere. Happy to be here. Happy to be educated here. Happy to have a business here. Raise a family here. And you know what? I'll probably die here one day. I'm just looking ahead, but that's a fact. I do think that transparency is really important. A couple of years ago, at this very forum, Jenna mentioned that she was going to make the funds available to all of the county. As of today, that still hasn't happened, actually. I do know, as of last week, you did put the investments online, so that's finally out there, and I don't know if that would have happened if she didn't have an opponent, but I will promise you guys, if you elect me as your treasurer, I will put the county funds out there. You guys can see all the money and what's being spent. I think that's the people's money, and you guys should be able to see that. I think you guys are smart enough to see it, and we should have mature, educated discussions about what's going on with those funds.
Thank you both. Before I again ask for your appreciation for them being here, I want to comment on a couple of questions that I received. I think one probably from Zoom and one maybe from the audience member. And I think we should make this clear early on in a forum. Questions in a League of Women Voters forum have to be to both candidates the same. I've got specific questions, and it happens every time we do one of these forums where they're geared to one particular candidate. I and the league are under strict fairness requirements that we have to ask the same question to both people and ask it as close as we can the same way. So I can't ask these two questions because they wouldn't be appropriate for one of our candidates. Generato, Dustin Stanton, both of you, thank you for being here. They are the candidates for the. I want to say before we go to a break that this is the conclusion of our formal candidate forum. We're going to have another candidate forum, as I mentioned a little while ago, on October 3rd for the general election, contested races for state Senate District 19, state representatives in districts 44, 47, and 50. And the league will host two events to explain the November 5th ballot issues. First, an informational program, the same place at 6 o'clock on October 8th, and a lunch and learn with Rudy Keller on October the 9th. All these programs will be here in the Friends Room and it will be available on Zoom. We're going to take a short 2-minute break again. When we come back, we have conversation with candidates coming up next. So we'll go back in 2 minutes to the library. Moving into a different portion of our program, this is an opportunity. Again, if you were not with us when we started the program, invitations went out to the candidates to be a part of this forum tonight. Some of the candidates declined that opportunity. When the declining an opportunity occurs, that means that we have an opportunity just to visit with the candidate who does show up, and that is going to be what we do in the next three statements. So I am pleased to be joined by Judge Stephanie Morrow. She is the Democratic candidate for Circuit Judge, Circuit 13, Division 3. This circuit includes Boone and Callaway counties. We welcome you. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing all right also. You're currently an associate circuit judge. And educate us. What's the difference between an associate and a judge that doesn't have the associate time?
Statements are divided into circuits. Our circuit is circuit 13, and we have circuit judges and we have associate circuit judges. Circuit judges in our circuit cover both Boone and Callaway counties. Associate circuit judges generally only include the county in which they were elected. So currently I am over Boone County cases. That being said, I can be assigned to any cases that occur in Boone or Callaway counties. The other difference is the type of cases generally that they handle. Associate circuit judges handle all criminal cases from the beginning. However, felony cases will go to the circuit court for trial. Associate circuit judges also handle civil cases up to a certain dollar amount, And then higher dollar amounts go to circuit. And then also probate cases are generally handled by the circuit judges. However, I have been assigned those for the last 5 years, and I handle all the probate cases here in Boone County.
You've been in law for a long time, right? You
Yes.
want to give us a quick background of your history of work?
Sure. I moved to Columbia after law school in 2000 to start a job with the Attorney General's Office of Missouri. When I first moved here, I thought, oh, I'll be here a couple of years, but how quickly Missouri becomes your community.
Surely you weren't going back to Kansas, were you?
Yes, I probably would have gone back to Kansas, but again, how quickly Boone County, mid-Missouri becomes your community. I then started work at the Boone County Prosecutor's Office in 2007, worked there for 12 years before I was elected in 2018. This is where I have raised my 2 boys. The youngest just left for college, and where I served my community as a public servant for over 20 years.
When you were elected, were there any surprises when you sat in the judge seat that you weren't prepared for by what you had done prior to that?
You know, that's interesting, because I have been in a courtroom basically every day for over 20 years. And so especially you think you know everything that's going to happen, and you don't. So every day can be a surprise. There is no typical day. One of the, I was talking to somebody the other day. I had a status hearing the other day in a probate matter. It was a case where a retired military veteran, a member of our community, had just been diagnosed with a delusional disorder, and his son was pursuing guardianship and conservatorship because he was being scammed and is currently being scammed for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so what should have just been a 10-minute hearing to set the case for another date to check on the bank accounts was 40 minutes. It was 40 minutes of listening to the father, how frustrated and angry he was, one, that he'd been diagnosed with this disorder, 2, that he was angry at his son, thinking he was trying to take over. Listening to the son, who was just trying to protect his father, protect the assets, and at the same time frustrated and sad that he was losing his dad. And so every day is a different day. And what they needed at that moment was not just a status hearing, but it was a judge cared, who listened, and was there to counsel them and make sure that the right decision to protect the father.
How do you make that decision? What guidelines are there?
Well, first you listen. One of the great things about probate law is we have a great set of statutes, but that being said, each set of facts is different. I have people come in front of me every day that I have to judge their credibility. I have to listen to the doctors about how much independence this person should still have, can still have, make sure they still have that dignity, and at the same time, make sure that they are protected from people who want to take advantage of them.
Somebody has handed me a question. Can you explain your judicial philosophy? I think it kind of relates to what you're talking about now.
Yes. So my philosophy is it matters who our judges are. You never know when an unexpected event is going to bring you into the courthouse, whether it's a custody issue, a property dispute, God forbid a crime. And you want to make sure that the judge that you appear in front of has the right legal and life experience to know what impact their decisions have on people's lives and can fairly judge a case and reach the right outcome. And I am that person. And every day, whether it's a criminal case, a probate case, a civil case, my philosophy is that person's case is just as important as the next person's, and that my experience matters.
I don't know how true, well, I know this happens. I don't know whether it's appropriate or not, but if somebody's going to be going to a court case in Columbia, oftentimes somebody will say, well, who's the judge? Who's the judge going to be?
Yeah.
And Kevin Crane has held the position that you're, in case you need to be able to put in your mind what she's running for. It's Kevin Crane's seat. He's not running for re-election. If somebody hears, oh, it's going to be Judge Morrill, what do you think goes through their mind?
I think, well, it depends on the type of case. But I think what goes through their mind is that she listens, that she considers every fact in my position, that although she may not agree with me, that she has fairly decided the case. I think they probably asked their attorneys what to think about who they're appearing in front of. And I think if you have followed this campaign at all, you will notice that I have prosecutors and defense attorneys. I have civil attorneys from both sides. I have probate attorneys, attorneys that practice in front of Boone County and Callaway County that support me. Attorneys disagree all the time. That's what they're supposed to do. But one thing they do agree on is that I am a good judge and I am the appropriate person for this position.
Related to this also, I think is another question that was handed to me. What are the biggest changes you think need to be made to our justice system?
Well, I think one of the biggest changes and something we've been working on actually here in the 13th Circuit, both in Boone and Callaway County, is access to our courts. So, and what I mean by that is during COVID-19, not a lot of good things we can say about COVID-19, but one of the good things we can say is that it forced the court to look at different ways to handle proceedings because we couldn't stop. There were litigants and criminal defendants that needed their cases heard. And so I very quickly, after those initial closures, contacted some of our local attorneys and said, hey, will you do a test run with me of video court? Can we make this work? And it's important for our litigants, for our vulnerable individuals who may not be able to appear, for criminal defendants who are indigent, may not have transportation to be able to get to court. It avoids failure to appear warrants, helps attorneys that maybe have to appear not only in the 13th Circuit, but multiple other circuits on the same day. It helps us run expeditiously. And so that's something we got it up and running. We continue to work on it every day. So the pandemic may be over, but video court is not. We also, the Supreme Court changed the rules on access to documents. So more things, more documents are accessible online. It used to be you had to come to the courthouse. The Supreme Court changed those rules so there's access. The public can have more access. At the same time, there is confidential information in these public documents. And what do we do to protect the public's right, litigants' rights, attorneys' rights, others' rights to their confidential information? So again, after the Supreme Court said, hey, we're going to let people have access to all this, I couldn't sit around and wait for somebody else. So I pioneered rules that are in effect here in the 13th Circuit to protect individuals' confidential information, but also balance that with the public's right to court documents, because this is a public system.
If someone were to read your website, your campaign site, or know more about your background, you've received a lot of recognitions and awards. So my question is, of those that you've received as a judge, which means the most to you?
Well, that's not fair to make me choose. But I would say the one I am probably most proud of is the Public Service Award, Woman of the Year Award for Public Service. When I was a prosecutor, I handled over 20 homicide cases, and one of them was an individual who suffered from schizophrenia and had won a large settlement. He had been burned in a fire and got a large settlement. And the defendant kind of warmed his way into this gentleman's life and took advantage of him. He then hired a hitman to come and murder him to take all his money. There was a forged notary, there was a forged power of attorney, a forged will. So after a year preparing that case and 2-week-long trials, the hitman and the defendant were found guilty of first-degree murder. And so that work, along with my other cases, serving our communities, is something I'm very proud of and something I will continue to do because this is my community in Missouri.
I wouldn't get to ask this question if this was a different type of a setting or forum, but I'm curious as to hearing you give that answer and other things that you've referred to and know that you probably have faced. How do you not take those things home with you at the end of the day?
One is I've had a lot of practice because I've been doing this over 20 years. My experience has been as a public servant. So when I walk out of the courthouse, I have to leave it there because I have a family, I have my 2 boys. But at the same time, that work also goes into my community events. I have volunteered for scouting events. I've judged countless high school debate tournaments. I have volunteered at the elementary, middle, and high school to teach civic education classes, volunteered at the law school to encourage and advise our next generation. So yes, you leave some of that at the door because you have to, but you also take it with you because it's important.
I've read about the Boone County Jail Mental Health Staffing Committee.
Yeah.
Explain that.
So this was started several years ago. Judge Leslie Schneider, who has since retired, was the original facilitator. It is a group of different individuals involved in the criminal justice system and mental health system. So we have prosecutors, defense attorneys, myself now as the judge. We have members of the Boone County Sheriff's Department. We have mental health professionals throughout our county, and we meet bi-weekly to discuss individuals in the jail that suffer from mental health issues, whether it's a minor mental health issue or more severe. And what we discuss is potential disposition. Should they be in the jail? Should they be in the Department of Mental Health, having a mental health evaluation, making sure they do not get lost in the system, that they have the treatment that they need, even if they are being held at the jail? And how can we make sure that these cases move expeditiously and make sure that they have the help that they need while they're being held and facing criminal charges?
How successful is that committee, and what could be done better?
We are very successful considering the limitations that we have just in the criminal justice system. What I will say is that with the collaboration of all the interested parties, we move cases more expeditiously. We have more contact with the Department of Mental Health, who right now is almost a year behind on doing mental health evaluations. What we would like to do and what I would like to see happen is work on more data and have more resources available to individuals suffering from mental health issues in our community, whether it's someone facing a criminal charge or just a member of our community that needs help. And so we are working right now. We have a couple of individuals who are in our community who have volunteered to be part of this, to work on data and research, to see what other resources are available and what we can reach out to the state for.
We're gonna have to wrap this up as we're about 15 minutes into this conversation, but I want to ask this question. Your thoughts about how judges run for this office? They campaign for this office. They raise funds for this office. They are being associated with a political party. What are your thoughts about that? Because a lot of us would like to ideally think, kind of like the Supreme Court, that they're not at all and you know, leaning one way or the other. I'm being facetious on that one.
Well, it is very different to be running for an office. We do have to run on a political party, but we cannot take any political positions. As judges, our ethical rules prohibit us from verbally asking for money for our campaign, but you still have to raise money. But it's important that those rules are in place, because as a citizen, you want to know that if you appear in front of that judge, that they do not have any biases, they have not predetermined your case. I am proud of the fact that I have the support and endorsements from Republicans and Democrats, from attorneys on both sides of the aisle, from prosecutors, defense attorneys. I'm endorsed by the Columbia Police Officers Association, retired Boone and Callaway County judges, both Republicans and Democrats, the Columbia Firefighters Association, teachers, nurses, mental health professionals, and others. So it is a very odd situation, but I'm proud of the work I have done in the sport I have.
You mentioned that you cannot go out and ask for contributions, but when you get contributions and people question those contributions, what would you have to say to them?
I am very proud of the support, whether it's a $10 donation or $1,000 donation. I don't question people's financial situations. I know that every donation can be a financial hardship for whoever it is. What I do say is that it's not the amount of money, it's the amount of people. And if you look at the list of people who do support me, I have the support of both Boone and Callaway counties because of the job I do.
I think it is the list of people who have made the donations. That sometimes people are saying, what's their motivation for making a donation?
Well, I think if you look at what is the motivation of the people who support me, is these are people, our local community members. These are people in both Boone and Callaway counties that understand that it matters who our judges are, and that have supported me and support the work that I have done and that I will continue to do for our community.
Judge, we appreciate your time being here. You want to leave us with any final thought?
My final thought is it matters who our judges are. You never know when an unexpected event is going to bring you in the courthouse. I am the person that has served our community for over 20 years in the trenches every single day. I am the person with the trial experience in the courtroom as a prosecutor, as a judge, and it is what I continue to do and what I intend to continue to do to serve our communities. So I thank you all for being here.
Judge Stephanie Morrow, she'll be on the ballot and County Council will join us next. This is the League of Women Voters event from the Columbia Public Library. Alrighty. And we're back at the Friends Room of the Daniel Boone Regional Library in Columbia, and I'm joined by Janet Thompson. She's currently the Boone County Commissioner for the Northern District, District 2, and she's running for re-election. Let me, first of all, welcome. It's good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you.
So I want to start there. You were first elected in 2012.
Yes.
12 years ago. What has changed in the county in 12 years, and how has politics or running for this office changed in that time?
So the county has grown exponentially, first of all. You know, when I look back 12 years ago, Boone County continues to change. It continues to grow, and but it's still exciting. And when I look back, the one thing that really has changed in terms of running was that first time when I ran against who is a really good friend, Don Borman. And when we had both gone through, because it was an open seat, and we had gone through the primaries, and he and I both survived that process. It was like a cattle call. I mean, everybody in the county actually had decided they wanted to run for county commissioner. And so Don and I went out to dinner, and we decided at that time that we were going to just talk about issues. We weren't going to get personal, and we weren't going to get nasty. And that was what we did for the rest of that campaign. And now we are such good friends. And so he and Linda, his wife Linda, and I go out, eat dinner, and see each other. And that, I think that has changed. So it's hard for me to see when that the vitriol that's happening on the national level, when I see that come down on the local level, that's really hard for me to see that as my hope.
How have you changed? I understand what you just said could be part of this answer, but you still seem to have an optimism. You still seem to have an enthusiasm for what you place yourself into. So how have you changed, if at all? Or how have you stayed the same?
I've tried to stay the same. It's, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes when you get attacked by people with who use, shall we call it misinformation, that's hard. And I think everybody here would find that difficult. And, I've been a lawyer. This is hard, the hardest thing to say. I've been a lawyer now for 40 years. So for 40 years, I've had to try to build that thick skin, but sometimes it's still hard to hear that.
I want to pick up on something when we had Judge Morrill on a little while ago. I asked her about the committee that has to do with mental health. I need to look at my notes to get this right. The Boone County Jail Mental Health Staffing Committee.
Yeah.
And before we turned on the microphones for our conversation, you talked about the history of that, and you've got a connection with that. So explain.
So when I first was elected to office, I realized that all of the stuff that I had been doing on a one-to-one basis, because I've been a public defender for 25 years at that time. And I had seen the issues that we're seeing systemically across the country, but here in Boone County, I've seen that on a one-to-one level. And when I became Boone County Commissioner, I thought now's the chance to take this to a larger level, to a systemic level. And Rusty Antel, who's a well-known defense lawyer here in Boone County, and he was part of the jail overcrowding conversations for many years. He became my, I was either his sidekick or he was mine. We never figured that out. But at one point, Rusty said, I wonder if we could get together all of the people that are involved in looking at what's going on in our jail to see if the mental health issues could be resolved in a better and more efficient way and help those people. And I said, hold that thought, Rusty. I'm going to reach out to one of the staffers at the National Association of Counties, because if somebody else is doing it, they'll know. So I called this one staffer and I said, here's what we're looking at. Have you ever heard of it? And she was really cute. She said, well, there's 2 counties that may have done it. She said, Ramsey County, Minnesota, or Johnson County, Iowa. So Ramsey has had a history, and that's Minneapolis, St. Paul area. Ramsey has had a history of doing some really good work. So I called Ramsey first, and they said, no, but if you find it, call us back because we want to try it. And so then I called Johnson County, and they said, yes, we've been doing it, and we have now reduced our jail overcrowding by 50%.
Wow.
Yeah, so we were like, okay, we're on a good path here. So Rusty and I reached out to then Chief Judge in the circuit was Chris Carpenter, and to Leslie Schneider, because Leslie was hearing, as Judge Morrill, she was hearing all of the probate cases. So we knew that on those criminal cases, she wouldn't have to refuse. So we asked the 2 of them, may we pilot this here in Boone County? And we set up conversations for all of the people that would be involved, all of the stakeholders who would need to kind of say a blessing over it. So the prosecutor had to do the blessing, the public defender, the chief judge who had already given her blessing, the sheriff gave his blessing, the jail administrator gave his blessing. All of those folks came together and said, yes, we want to try it. And what Judge Morrill describes is the result of those conversations and the willingness of all those stakeholders to say what can happen here. And I'll never forget, the coolest thing was when Judge Snyder at one point heard a conversation about this one person, and she looked very pointedly at the prosecutor and said, you filed on this person, why? And so we really saw things happen and things change. So I'm so proud of that program because it really is affecting people's lives and making us more accountable to the folks in the system.
And I applaud the existence of that committee. Some would say, though, that the problem is as bad now as it's ever been with the county jail, basically a mental health facility.
And that's, unfortunately, that's nationwide. And one of the things Judge Morrill talked about is a real question for us and something we're working on through the Missouri Association of Counties. And I understand Dustin's point, But, I don't, when I work on the National Association of Counties or Missouri Association of Counties, I don't care, and nobody seems to care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. You're dealing with people and you're dealing with issues that are nationwide and statewide. So we've gone down to Jeff City to talk to people down there about the problems that are happening in DMH. The Department of Mental Health is ignoring the existence of an order, like when a judge in Boone County or in Callaway County adjudicates somebody incompetent to proceed. Right now, there are over 300 people who are sitting in county jails, sitting with that court order to be delivered to the Department of Mental Health, and Department of Mental Health is not picking them up. So that's one of the huge problems that we're looking at, and Judge Morrell's committee is actually pushing to say, DMH, stand up and take your medicine, because this is your statutory and constitutional obligation. So right now, that's where we are, is working on that piece of it, but it's all of these pieces of the puzzle that are coming together to try to facilitate a better result.
Columbia Police Department has had they are looking to implement some who are experts in mental health issues to help on calls. Does the sheriff's department have anything in the works like that, or would you advocate for something like that for the sheriff's department?
I would advocate for it. One of the first things that you have to look at, from my perspective, and this is something that the sheriff has been a leader on, is having all of your officers CIT trained. CIT is crisis intervention team training. They have had that. In fact, at the sheriff's department, they do statewide training on CIT. And they are real advocates of having every one of their road officers, as well as their detention officers, CIT training. So that's a big piece of it, having those folks with the background to be able to themselves have some level of professionalism, of skill and knowledge to be able to deal with those issues. But certainly the co-responder model is something that I think we need to pursue. And that it may be that the community behavioral health liaisons that are in each of our circuits, and unfortunately, most of them are spread among 10 different counties. But if we could use a CBHL as that ride along, that would be a good use of that person.
Did the Children's Service Fund, was that election when you were elected the first time?
I usually follow those door knockers down through.
So explain how well that has done over the last dozen years, because I remember voting on it. I remember hearing what its potential was and what it was supposed to do. What has been its strengths and weaknesses in those years?
So I always think stories are really that tell the tale for something. It has been a game changer for Boone County. We've been able to do work here that without those funds, we would never have been able to do. And one of the things that's happening for every child in Boone County from kindergarten through grade 12 is they're getting a mental health screening twice a year. And that's significant. And let me tell you a story about that. I heard from a fourth grade teacher in one of our jurisdictions, our smaller jurisdictions, and reading those evaluations, the first one of the year, fourth grade teacher, there was a young person in her class who had developed a plan to complete suicide, had the date, had the time, had the method all picked out. Because of that screening, that kid still alive. Because the teacher was able to connect that kid with the resources that it needed to be able to stop that suicide. So that's a heart-wrenching one, but there's programs that are being offered across Boone County that are meeting needs. The Children's Services Board evaluates a lot of responses to their RFPs. They do a grassroots program that's really interesting because there are a lot of people, you have the university that could write a response to an opportunity that looks, I mean, it is professional, because they have professional grant writers. And then there's people like you and me that might not be as good at it or might not have the resources. So our Children's Services Board recognized that difference and said, we need a grassroots opportunity. And right now they're going through year one of that grassroots opportunity to really bolster and increase the ability of our community to respond to needs.
We're gonna have to wrap this up pretty shortly, so let me ask you just a couple of quick questions in conclusion. One is, I like driving from here north on Highway 63, and about the time that I get to 124 and beyond, everything, it changes.
Yeah.
The traffic changes. So my question to you is, anyone who makes that drive and goes up to Sturgeon or anywhere else in northern Boone County knows the difference between that area and this area here that we are in Columbia. So how does the difference challenge you as a commissioner?
So I live up there. I live on a farm, actually just south of Hallville. I'm in the Hallville School District. And I love northern Boone County. The challenge is something that happens where I live and across the county, is broadband. That's a huge challenge, and I think, Dustin's nodding his head, right? It's before the pandemic, a lot of people thought that connectivity was something that you needed to watch a movie. It's so much more than that. This is truly this century's, the equivalent of electrification. It's so important for jobs. It's so important for somebody who's trying to work in their field. It's so important for education. It's so important for your jobs. It's so important for healthcare. And when we start looking at northern Boone County, some of the things that are affecting us, we're, as Justin said, problems don't stop at jurisdictional borders. Like in Centralia, we have seen a huge demand for healthcare services because the hospital closed over in Audrey. So they're coming over to Centralia for healthcare. So if we could get our broadband more robust, and in fact, we invested a lot of ARPA funds for broadband because of this, because if we can have a more robust broadband, then you'll be able to maybe access medical care through that portal. So that's something that, I love living in the country. I love being able to scream at my dog and nobody hears. or being able to run my manure spreader at all hours of the night or whatever. But I need broadband, and I think everybody that lives in the county would appreciate that.
Well, unless you're just screaming at the dog, not doing what one of the governors of the Dakotas did. Let's let you go here in just a moment. Anything you want to leave us with?
So, I've been very fortunate. For the last 40 years, I've been a lawyer, but for the first 25 years of my legal career, I spent as a public defender. And in that time, I was blessed to be able to work to support the constitutional rights of the people who are very vulnerable. And I always told people, if the Constitution meant anything, it applied to those people. Since being on the commission for the last 12 years, I have applied rules and tried to make sure that the Constitution and all those principles apply equally to everybody across the county. I don't ask somebody if you're a Republican or a Democrat. I don't ask about gender. I don't ask about race. I don't ask about age or ability. I think the county commission should be responsive to everyone. And that's what I've done for the last 12 years, and I hope for another 4.
Janet Thompson, thank you, appreciate it. Janet Thompson running for Boone County Commissioner for the Northern District, that's District 2. She's been our guest. We're going to come back and talk with the candidate who is here that is running for the position of Circuit Clerk. So this break. I want to thank our audiences tonight, KOPN, KFRU, also those who are listening on the League of Women Voters Zoom, and also those of you who have been in the Friends Room. Do appreciate you being here. I think this is an important night. These are important conversations. These are important offices. And the next one is also, although I think even my guest is going to say, people would give you the blankest stares if you would say, okay, I'm running for circuit clerk. And they would say, that's great now. Tell me what it is. So our guest is Sherry Terrell. She is currently serving as the circuit clerk, running for re-election. I told you before we got on the air, I go to websites because I don't know what a circuit clerk does, but I looked at everything that you do and you're responsible for: guardianships, probate, wills, trusts, court dates, arrest warrants, getting information about court appearances and things like that. This is a big job.
It's very big, it's a very big job, yes.
Why would anybody want it?
That's a great question. I actually never saw myself in this position. I've been with the courts for over 22 years, 20 of those right here in Boone County. I started on the front line. That is dubbed an entry-level position, but it's far from that. But I started there and I worked my way up to a civil supervisor and into accounting and traffic. And then I served 5 years second in command to Christy Blakemore, who retired last year. I don't know. I think I've spent 22 years preparing for this. I didn't know that though. There are a lot of records that have to be maintained and a lot of relationships that have to be fostered and created sometimes. But I couldn't stand by and see somebody get this position that had absolutely no experience.
You know, we've talked already tonight in this event with commission candidates, and we talked with treasurer candidates, and we talked with the judge. I think if I understand your office, I might more likely have contact with your office than any of those other ones in many circumstances.
Absolutely, that is correct. During our campaign, we're learning that a lot of people don't actually know what our office does. And I think quite simply, we are the very less glamorous side of the judiciary. In order for a court of law to function, you need somebody behind the scenes taking care of those records. And that's exactly what my office does.
But it does a lot more than that.
We do.
I mean, how do you arrange the office? Because as I looked at the website today talking about circuit clerk, it looks like there are several, it would break down into several different divisions or departments. I don't know how you define that.
Right. I call them teams. We all work together. We are split up into 5 teams. We have our traffic and accounting team. And then from there, we have our civil team. We also have a family court team, which actually is 4 teams in one. We have criminal, and then we have our probate team. So we are all split up into teams.
How big is the staff?
Total 46, 47 with me.
And that is, as far as the county departments or offices are, when you compare the number, where is that? I mean, that has to be one of the bigger.
It is one of the
other than the sheriff's department.
It absolutely is one of the larger ones. We are primarily state employees. I do have 5 county staff.
We were also talking before we got on microphone for the audience that it seems odd that a position like this is an elected position. Your thoughts about that?
I agree with you completely. There is absolutely no political gain in this position. Like I said before, it is an office of administrative roles that requires experience. We work with a lot of judicial partners. We serve a bench of 13, which is 11 judges and 2 commissioners. That's a very important relationship. We work with law enforcement, bondsmen, just a lot of judicial partners. So absolutely, there's no political gain, but we do have to declare.
Obviously, since you've been working at this for a while and you worked in with the previous circuit clerk, but how do you learn the job in the first place? How do you know how to do this job?
That's a very good question. Like I said, I guess I spent the past 22 years preparing for this, not knowing that this is where I was going to end up. I've had some great mentors. I pay attention. I make sure that I'm educated and my staff is educated because we are bound by statute and court rules, and that's very important. We are not attorneys, but a lot of people that do come into our office are looking for some kind of guidance from us, and we can't give them law, any law advice, but we can give them resources. But we are bound by those statutes and those rules that kind of protect us.
help me understand and give some example stories if you can, as well as you can without having to go past names or anything like that. But we talked about, and I mentioned that maybe I would be more apt to have contact with your office, but give us several real examples of how someone comes to your office, other than what you just gave us as far as the lawyers are concerned, that would need help from the circuit clerk.
Okay, a big one for us is our office. We are the intake for orders of protection. That would be for ex partes, people that are in a crisis and they need help. They would start by filing that information with our office, and it's my staff's responsibility to review that information to make sure that it is accurate and as much information in there for the judge. We can't tell them what to put, but we will review it. We also have talked a lot tonight about the mental health crises. If there is somebody that is in dire straits and they need some help, a loved one or someone, law enforcement can come in and file a 96-hour hold to try to protect them from themselves or other people. That is filed in our office as well.
I wouldn't know to come to your office for either of those, especially the first one that you mentioned. I would be more apt to go to law enforcement. So I would imagine that a lot of times it's the law enforcement saying you need to go there.
Absolutely, that's correct. And that is another thing that I'm learning on my campaign. Like I said, a lot of people don't actually know what the circuit clerk's office does. I've been working with an individual in the community that wants to try to bridge that gap, that he understands a lot of people don't know what we do. And so maybe just educating our community on what our office does.
Well, we get to do part of that tonight. I'm
Yes.
just still curious, as an elected circuit clerk, you're in charge of hiring everybody that works for you.
Absolutely.
So how is your day structured? Because what you've described happens in your teams are diverse. I mean, there are a lot of different things happening there. How is your day or week filled?
Depends on the day.
Mhm.
Some days it's doing nothing but putting out fires. Someday it is reaching out to individuals that have called in that don't understand what's going on with their case, and they want to speak to someone above the person that they've talked to on the phone or the person that they've been in front of at that counter. It does take a lot of planning on attempt to plan, I guess I should say, on how the day or the week it's going to look like with how much staff we have here, who's out, and how to run our dockets effectively for our judges in the community.
Let me ask you a couple of questions. Like, I've got a will. Is that will in your office?
If it's filed with us, it is.
So should it be?
It should be.
If I have a lawyer that knows what she or he is doing, they filed it with you?
We'll file that original will with us, yes.
And so then what happens? I mean, I die, then what happens?
Well, we're gonna keep that on file until there's some type of case filed against the estate.
And then, I'm not trying to be morbid here, but I mean, what happens when that happens, when that is like that? Then, as far as like, if I get arrested for something, speak on that team, what they do with arrest, and if somebody says no, or I'm just curious, maybe the expungement of cases that were marijuana cases earlier. I don't know if you're dealing with that.
Yes, I am most definitely dealing with that. With the legal.
Not that I've had one of those.
I'm actually glad that you brought that up, because a lot of individuals, again, don't understand that my office is the one responsible for those automatic expungements. There's really nothing automatic about it. And we are making headway with getting those expungements done. However, we can't fit that into our day. That we have cases, judgments that are coming in, cases that are being filed that we deal with on a daily basis. So what we're doing is I have a team that is coming in and they're working 2 to 3 nights a week and 2 Saturdays a month to work on those expungements. We have to review those to see if they're eligible, number one, to even go to the judge to review, to be expunged. And then we have to actually expunge the record. And then we have to redact a record if it's not the whole case that's expunged, if it's just one charge. We have to redact everything in that case that refers to that charge. So I am very fortunate that I have a very dedicated staff working on that. And we have reviewed almost 10,000 cases and expunged. I think we're creeping up on 3,000 out of that 10,000.
You don't need 46 employees, you need 146.
I'm not going to disagree with that at times. I'm sure the judges wouldn't either.
What makes this interesting and appealing to you?
I think for me, like I said, this is not a position that I ever saw myself in. I always thought I was better second in command, just kind of quietly taking care of things in the background. But when Christy, kind of just started putting feelers out that she might be retiring, who would be interested in her position, no one was stepping up, not even me. And then I got scared. We have a lot of wonderful relationships that we have built, and we need to maintain those. And we have a staff of 46, and they need somebody in there taking care of them to help guide them. And so, did I ever see myself doing this? Absolutely not. But here I am, and I'm in it for the long haul now.
We talked about how maybe this shouldn't be an elected spot. How would it be? How would you say, let's do it this way? If you could ideally say, we're not going to elect a circuit clerk anymore, we're going to hire one. And what would the hiring process look like in your creative mind?
The process would definitely be one built on experience. And I say that because you've heard me say I've been in with the state for 22 years, but 20 years right here in Boone County. I had the opportunity to work in St. Louis County, which is one of our largest counties in Missouri, and it's very different than what we do here. And they got tired of me referring to Boone County, and they reminded me once, you're no longer in Boone County. So I had to get back to my roots because I think it's important to know the community that you're in and have the experience within the offices. Thought I knew what the office did, but I would have to say that my superiors were always very good about not bringing things to my level if not necessary. So it wasn't even until after Christy left, that I start finding out some things that I didn't need to worry about because she had it. When I was in second in command, I learned so much more because I was just a manager, not a court manager. And those things they did not bring to me or worry me with. So definitely the experience is very important.
Well, I think we've been educated again tonight on what the circuit clerk does, and it's amazing. What would you like to leave us with as far as saying what it is that makes a good circuit clerk and what you've just described they're responsible for?
I think one of the biggest things that I would like to leave you with is I am a Boone County girl. I was born and raised here. I'm married to Jason, who is the Sergeant Court Marshal for the 13th Judicial Circuit in Callaway County. I bring experience and compassion to this position, which you need both. We have talked about it being an administrative role, if I could talk. And in order for us to uphold justice in our court, we need my team of 46 to take care of those records, to handle them, to make sure we have access to them, to take care of the integrity of them for not only us, but for generations to come. And to be accountable. We are humans and there are going to be mistakes that are made, and we want you to know that if we make a mistake, we're going to handle that swiftly, and we are going to handle it with as much humility as we can.
Thank you very much, Sherry Terrell. How about a hand for her? Sit here. I'm going to wrap this up in the next 30 seconds. I want to say two things. One is she was here from the beginning, so being the last person on the front, very nice of you to be here. And then I want to also thank, I see candidates here that we talked to on the very first one, the candidates for the Southern District of the Boone County Commission. They've been here all night. Sam Turner, Justin Aldred, I know Weston Stanton is here, Judge Morrow is here, and I know also Jenna Radle's here. They've stayed through the night, and that doesn't always happen at these events. So thank you all. It shows that you're interested in what's going on in the county, and it shows those of you who are here that you're interested also for being part of it. So we've reached a conclusion for tonight. I want to remind you we will be back here with another forum and probably conversations on Thursday night. League of Women Voters, thank all the candidates and audience members for participating. Forum and conversations have been recorded. They'll be posted on the League and Library's websites. No excuse absentee voting is available from October 22nd until November 4th. You need to have an unexpired Missouri driver's license or non-driver's license, unexpired U.S. passport or other federal ID to vote during no excuse absentee voting. If you do not have an acceptable photo ID, you can still vote on election with a blue provisional ballot. So you are encouraged by the League of Women Voters to vote. Thanks to Lauren Williams, thanks to Tom Holmes back there and the tech crew that he's done for the broadcast at KFRU and also on KOPN for broadcasting tonight's forum and conversations with candidates. Good night.